Hi, I'm Renee Tucci, and today we're going to create a spring centerpiece that's a nod to our feathered friends. For today's arrangement, we're going to use this footed ceramic compote. It's got the perfect size, height, and color. Now, I've already prepared a chicken wire pillow for the inside, and I'm going to go ahead and drop a link below for how I constructed this pillow. I did that in a separate video, so go ahead and check out that link if you'd like to see how to make this. Now, to prepare it in the container, all I did was I set the pillow inside. Then I took some clear tape. I did one band across the top just to make sure it was going to stay inside. Every now and again, if you have to get real handy with the wire, it wants to pop out. So I took a band across the top, and then I did one completely all the way around the rim just to hold it in place, and it's not going anywhere. Now, I'm going to be creating a structure on the perimeter of this pillow, so I also pre-added a few wire twists. And I did that with the bind wire, the paper covered wire, and I just cut a length. And on each corner, I have some twists going here. And I may or may not use them, I probably will, but they're just to help me get going here, and I'll probably need to add a few more. Now, we're going to create the structure first and add our flowers later. And we're going to do that using this material right here, which is curly willow. And it's a really popular florist branch. You can get it all year round. It's very, very flexible and malleable. It's really great to work inside of containers to act as a structure and a support. And like I said, you can really bend it and manipulate it and make it do all kinds of things. And so that's what we're going to do today. What I'd like to create is a sort of nest type structure around the perimeter and then do our flowers in the center. So we'll start with our curly willow, and I'm going to discard the bottom of the stems. They're very, very heavy and hard to bend. So I want to work with just the top area, the top portion of the stem, which is a little easier to work with. So I'm just going to start by feeding it through my chicken wire pillow. And then kind of as you would go with the grain, we're going to go with the branch here, and it wants to swing this way. So I'm going to start to rein it in. I'm going to work this bundle into my first pre-done wire twist. I'm going to hold that pretty close to the pillow, and it's always messy in the beginning and even into the middle. But then once you get several of these established, then they just start to hold each other in place and you can weave them into each other. So that's one. And then maybe I'll take this, well, I'll leave that out there for now. I can always add these little guys in once we get our bigger pieces established. And then I'm gonna keep moving forward. I'm gonna repeat that with all the branches that I have. And so now I'm gonna pick up where that one ended and lay that in, pull it around. Now I want to leave some volume on the outside, so I'm not pulling it completely tight to the container or the pillow. I'm letting it splay out a bit, and like I said, leaving some volume. We want to create some real size, some negative space to make it seem like the appearance is bigger than it actually is, or that it contains more materials than it actually does. Now, if your branch is a little stiff, if it's still fresh but a little stiff, you can massage it and make it a little more pliable. So you just gently use the pressure from your hand to start to bend it, and that will make it even easier to encircle your compote. If your curly willow is not fresh, you can still use it, but it will not bend without snapping. So you just have to be aware of that. Okay, now I've got all of my branches in. It's a little bit wild right now. I've got this guy coming up right out the top. And in fact, I have some loose ones all around. And I may choose to tuck them in tighter later, but I want to hold off and add my flowers first. So, as you can see, there's still a ton of room in the center for all of the flowers to live in, and yet we've got this great natural support on the perimeter. So when you create a natural mechanic or any sort of mechanic that acts like a support for the flowers, that's called a kubari. That's the kubari technique. And so I'm going to use this natural mechanic to help hold up some of my flowers while highlighting what's living in the center. So we'll just fill this with water because, of course, it's easier to work with the branches when there's no water in the compote. But now that we're going to add flowers, they're going to need a drink. Okay, I'm going to do it at about halfway right now while I'm working on it, just to keep the sloshing down. Of course, once you're finished, you'll want to go ahead and top that off with water. Okay, so as I mentioned, I wanted to include some flowers within my support here. Now I've got some beautiful tulips here, and I've let them lay out for a few hours and dehydrate, so they're a little more malleable, and just like the curly willow, it's easy to manage them and manipulate them. So I'm going to go ahead and trim these stems, and I'm going to start to weave this into my structure as well, but I want to make sure I go clear through and into my water. So it's going through the chicken wire into the water, and then I'm going to use the branches to help hold the tulips out into the structure. And I'm going to use some of the bind wire to help hold them in place as well. So just a little piece of the bind wire will give us a little bit of a helping hand. Very discreetly doing just a little twist on the neck of the tulip. Now, since they're dehydrated, now that I've given them a fresh cut and gotten them into water, they will harden off in this position. And as you know, for tulips that continue to grow and change, these heads will want to get a little wonky, but that's sort of the fun of watching it all, isn't it? All right, we'll go through and trim all of our wire ends at the end. You can remove any leaves that might be in the way. I've already done that. There were several more leaves on the stem that I have removed. I'm just giving it another little massage to make sure it's nice and happy for me so that I don't get any accidental snaps while I'm trying to manipulate my friend the tulip here. we go. I think this one might stay without the wire. Looks like it. Now that one was a little higher up, so I'm going to do this next one a little lower down. Make sure I'm really taking advantage of all of these layers that I just created with the branches. Okay, so the addition of those swirling tulips really added some really great bright green with the foliage throughout the branches, but also some interest leading the eye into the center of the design here for where we're going to add the rest of our flowers. We're going heavy with the spring theme here. So next up, let's add some hyacinth. I've got some pink hyacinth here, and you don't need smell-o-vision to know how good these smell. And I'm going to put my flowers together in groupings. And that just means I'm going to place them all in the same area. With the grouping though, you're still able to tell one flower from the other. And they're going right in, and they're staying right where I put them because of my chicken wire mechanic, my pillow. Okay, you know what? This hyacinth, I like where this grouping is, but now it's kind of covering my tulip down here. So, and this happens sometimes as you're designing, you put one thing one place, and then you realize you want it in another. So I'm gonna actually relocate him to more of the perimeter area and use a little piece of the bind wire to hold it in place. And we just want to tuck away any of the mechanics of the wire. Make sure that they're not seen. And I had one other, oh here it is. We'll give that a trim and tuck that away as well. All right, so we've got our hyacinth in. Now we've got some more tulips to add. But these are going to go in the center as opposed to around the perimeter. And I'm going to keep these rather low, not only because I'm just trying to bring some interest to the center, but also because, as I mentioned, they will continue to grow. So if I put them an inch shorter than I want them today, by tomorrow, they'll be where I want them. And they will continue to grow, so you may need to pull them out and adjust them if you really like to have them at a certain place. Okay, so that's our little tulip grouping. Isn't that sweet? And now we're going to add in some grape hyacinth. These are really lovely, very fresh, and delicate little bulbs, but really perfect for the springtime. And I'm actually going to add these in small groups. So I have 4 in my hand here. I'm going to cut them all at the same time and add them in all at the same time. And that's strictly for efficiency, so that I get done a little faster. It doesn't always have to be one stem at a time. got a nice little grouping of the grape hyacinth here, and I even worked it within the layers of the curly willow right on the edge there. Now, if you look from above, you can still see some of the pillow mechanics. So I'm going to go ahead and just sink in some of this green trick dianthus. This is from the carnation family, and it's, again, perfect shade of green to go with our spring design. And it's going to feel like little moss pillows within the arrangement. It's going to help fill in between the clusters and add some really great texture. Okay, so there we have our little moss pillows that we've added in among our spring bulbs. Now I just want to add a really fun and whimsical touch to this design, and that's going to be with eggshells. So I've got a basket full of eggshells that have been halved, and obviously their innards have been removed, and I'm going to glue some of these throughout the curly willow nest that we've created. The brown of the eggshells is going to be the perfect complement to the brown of the curly willow. Some of the spots I have glued just one egg, and some of the spots I have paired two together, just to provide a little bit of interest as you move around the perimeter of the container. I do have another flower that I'd like to add, and that is this cymbidium orchid. And so orchids are really wonderful. They come so many blooms on a stem, and the cymbidiums specifically are very hardy. So I actually have already ready some water tubes, and so what I'm going to do is clip these orchids off of the main stem and add them into a water tube where they're very slow drinkers, so it'll take them a long time to get through the water that's in this tube. So I'll set this in the tube, and the best way to add an orchid into a tube is to firmly hold it right underneath the head, right where it meets the stem, and press it as one. That's the easiest way to get it in. And I'm just going to simply place these around the arrangement here and there in different pockets where I think I need some interest. Okay, so these orchids have nestled into our design just lovely. And it's just about complete. One final addition as a nod to our feathered friends with our nest arrangement here. I thought it needed a few feathers. So I have here some actual chicken feathers, and you can get these at your local craft store. They're really delicate, and they're a very unexpected addition to the design. So again, with my glue gun, I'm just going to add these around. So here you have our bird's nest centerpiece. Real quickly, let's just review the techniques that we used in this arrangement. We created a natural mechanic, also known as a kubari, and we did that by weaving the curly willow branches, and we bound them with the bind wire, and we glued our feathers and our eggs onto the curly willow structure. It's just really beautiful, and I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you have learned a tip or technique. Thanks a lot for watching, and have a great day.